So Hiranyakashipu, over here we see that he's reached a point of desperation. His anger became more intense when he questioned his son. After he questioned his son as to what he had learned in school, he was hoping to hear something diplomatic, because Hiranyakashipu had also instructed the sons of Chukracharya, Sanda and Anarka, to train up Prahalad in diplomacy. They're very prepared. Hiranyakashipu actually tried everything. In the Bhagavatam it is explained that in diplomacy there are 4 steps involved. The first step in diplomacy is legislation, legal orders. You try to control someone by legal orders. Then another way is pacification. You try to pacify the individual, Sometimes we have to go through these processes even in our ISKCON temples. You tell them, this is the law, Prabhu. He doesn't want to follow the law. Then you try to pacify him, So when it doesn't work at pacification, then you go to the next step. This is more common in diplomatic circles than in ISKCON probably. Offer him a post. You offer him a position, hoping that now you offer him a position, the guy is going to become less volatile. But even if that doesn't work, then you resort to the last alternative, which is weapons. This, of course, in ISKCON we have no room. Vaishnavas never resort to violence. But the naturalist, they stoop to any levels to get their aims realized. So, Hiranyakashipu, he had tried. He was trained in diplomacy. So, he tried his best to control his son through legal orders. Didn't work. Then he tried pacification. He put his son on his lap, tried to pat him on his head, everything. Of course, there was no Krishna offering him post. Of course, he wanted him to become a ruler. But now that when everything failed, Hiranyakashipu had decided, now I have no alternative but to resort to cruel techniques. And he actually didn't spare any cruel technique. We've all heard of violence, devotees being put through inconveniences, just like in the former Soviet Union, when a movement first started, devotees were harassed. They had to go through so many difficulties. Some of them were sent into Siberia. Some of them were made to stay in frozen, cold rooms with no heat. They had to eat dry bread that was, weeks old and so on. But no one actually has had to undergo the difficulty that Prahalad had to undergo, isn't it? Just look at what Prahalad had to go through. He was thrown beneath the feet of big elephants. Then he was thrown among snakes. Normally when we see a snake, we run away, isn't it? I know some of the devotees who live in Goshala, they always complain sometimes they could cross snakes while coming to the temple. So they don't want to live in the Goshala. So Prahalad was surrounded by snakes. Then, hurling him from the top of a hill. My God. Hiranyakashipu's demons, assistants, took Prahalad at the top of a mountain and threw him from the top of the mountain. Still nothing happened to Prahalad. Then, he was administered poison. He was probably administered a big dose of poison, not a drop of poison. Still nothing happened. Then Prahalad was starved. Imagine, a 5-year-old kid. He was starved. Then he was exposed to severe cold. You can't even imagine what this cold may be. Here in Vrindavan, it's a little cold with no closure and you feel so concerned. But he was exposed to severe cold. Winds, fire and water. Then none of this worked. Then Hiranyakashipu said, throw stones on him. So very heavy stones were thrown on Prahalad, who was only a 5-year-old kid. Still none of this worked. Then what did Hiranyakashipu think? Hiranyakashipu realized, after all, Hiranyakashipu was not a complete fool. By Krishna's illusory energy and by the transcendental will of the Lord, he was playing the role of a demon. But we should never forget that in the core of his heart, he was a devotee. After all, at one time they were Jai and Vijay, isn't it? But they agreed to play the role of a demon to make the Lord's pastimes on this planet more relishable. Because when the Lord appears, and when the Lord has to display his superhuman powers, his opponent cannot be an ordinary person. It has to be a very powerful person. So Hiranyakashipu, and also Hiranyakashipu had recognized that if he has to become powerful, he has to practice austerities. That is why we see that Hiranyakashipu practiced extreme austerity. Present day, there is no shortage of Hiranyakashipus, isn't it? Like Prabhupada said, at one time there was one Hiranyakashipu, but today almost everywhere you turn around there's a junior Hiranyakashipu in action. People are just interested in gold or money and women. So, but this Hiranyakashipu, the original Hiranyakashipu, knew that even if you want material strength, you have to practice austerities.